Welcome to Golden Creatives Talk, the space where we pull back the curtain on the labor, the love, and the leaps of faith that define a creative life. I'm your host, CT Luna, or you can call me Cynthia. And before we bring on today's powerhouse guest, I have to share a bit of momentum from the labor and love side of my own house. My book, Brown Beyond Borders, has officially hit the charts with a top 4 Amazon ranking, yes, and a top 2 Ingram Spark ranking in their respective multiracial categories. And just this morning, Book Life by Publishers Weekly released its review calling the book a perceptive roadmap for navigating multiple cultural worlds and giving it straight A's for production. Yes, thank you. It's a reminder that when we own our narratives, the world takes notice. And speaking of owning narratives, today's guest. She is someone I've shared many miles with, literally and figuratively. Janna Zinzi. She's a media strategist, a storyteller, the visionary behind Wander Womxn. She has spent over 20 years documenting cultural change makers across the arts, spirituality, and social justice. Janna Zinzi is the co-founder of Wander Womxn, where she connects travelers with community-based sustainable adventures in places like New Orleans and Costa Rica. You've seen her bylines in Essence, Condé Nast Traveler, and Afar. She's a contributor to the newly released Lonely Planet Costa Rica guidebook. But beyond the bylines, Janna is a master media strategist. She has spent 2 decades in the trenches with organizations working on civil rights and reproductive justice, specializing in helping creators find the confidence to pitch their passions and speak their truth. A New Yorker by birth, a New Orlean by heart, and a forever student of African diasporic dance, Janna, we've gone from the halls of Boston University's College of Communication to the streets of London, and now we're here. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here. Thank you for that introduction. We really did we've known each other through space and time in a way that is incredibly special. And so I'm just grateful to be here. And congratulations on all of this success with the book. It's so good. It's wonderful. And I just connect with a lot of the things that you are talking about. And I just want to really honor you and give you your flowers, like applause, grace, all the things, kudos for the vulnerability of it. And there's a bravery in what you're talking about racial identity, ethnic identity, biracial, multi-ethnic identity. Like all of that is very complicated. It brings up a lot of feelings, issues, judgments. And so the way that you're so vulnerable about it is like really admirable. And it's giving me encouragement and inspiration to be able to speak about these things in a different way, in a more vulnerable and nuanced way. So like,
Oh, thanks.
mhm,
Thanks. Your check is
mhm.
in the mail. No, but wow, thank you so much. I am so thrilled to be talking to you and today. We do go way back. And I never dreamed I never dreamed this trajectory for myself, but I definitely didn't dream this for you either. I mean, back in the day, I knew you as you were very musical, so I can totally see the African diasporic dance. But the work with nonprofit organizations, reading your dissertation, we're going to talk about this actually. So I'm no longer going to wax lengthy. Let's talk about you.
Dive in.
So we both survived the BU Masters program and that legendary summer in London.
It was
Um,
legendary. World Cup 2022, or I mean
Yes,
2002. I'm
2000. Oh gosh.
yep, dating ourselves, but that's all right. That was a time.
That was a time. That was a time. And it was a post 9/11
Yep.
world.
Yep.
I mean, I remember we graduated shortly thereafter, and we were entering the workforce as a lot of folks had been laid off that year and were
Yep.
re-entering the workforce in that space. So
That's
I'm
right.
I'm kind of like I said, I'm kind of surprised that we
Yeah.
survived, made it, and actually thrived.
Ashe. Yep,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. It's interesting because I feel like a lot of times people talk about um, the 2008 crash and like the young, like the students and the folks that were coming out of that. And I'm like, our like second week of graduate school, 9/11 happened. And I
Mhm.
remember
Yes.
specifically leaving my apartment and being, my roommate was like, what's happening on TV? And I was like, I can't make sense of this. I gotta go to class. And then I'm like, we're watching it in class. And like
Yes.
half of the school is New Yorkers. And we're all like, we have to call our people. Like, what? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that
Yep.
was such a wild time. And for me, I had just graduated college. So I went straight to grad school. And I remember like one of my friends had just started. I talked to her the night before. She had just started her job in the towers. She is alive, thank God.
Ah,
Talked to her the night before, like, how do you like working downtown?
uh-huh.
Key. And then the next day, so that, and thinking about the shift of just the world, thinking about the shift of travel, thinking about the shift of like, we went there and we were studying mass communication. So we were studying news. And,
Yep.
as much as we had like this very interesting teacher, bless his heart.
Oh, I know who you're talking about too.
One of the things I will say that really I feel like was really important is that he did teach us about media literacy
Yeah.
in a way that I thought was, particularly like when you travel, when you touch down somewhere, how do you get to know a place?
Yeah.
And something I never forgot, along with his favorite example person, Joe Bifflestick, which I still use that as a like fake name for people.
I totally forgot that. I'm a own it now.
Yeah, and it definitely like cuts through any like if people are bored or they're like, "What is she talking about?" It brings it back because they're like, "What? Say that again." I'm like, "Now you're
Who?
paying attention, right?" But yeah, it was such an interesting time to be entering the workforce and be like figuring our lives out in
Hmm.
this very, very new context. And also too thinking about like entering the workforce at a time, I was entering PR and journalism, and
Hmm.
you as well, when like people did not know what to do with the internet. They were like, wait, there's
Hmm.
updates every day. Like it's not a newspaper where it has to be printed or like a monthly, magazine or a
Hmm.
weekly publication. So it
Hmm.
was such a like exciting time and an interesting time to be engaged
Yes.
in media work, both like socially, technologically, politically,
Yes.
culturally. I'm grateful.
Yes.
I sound like a dinosaur to some people, but I'm like, whatever. Like stuff changed really quickly in 20 years. Like, don't get it twisted, you know?
It really, I think we're the first generation where at least, communications and exposure to news happened, like, went through so many different revolutions.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but like, I, I was just telling somebody today that she was telling me she had a flip phone, which was called I think a Nokia Razor.
Okay, yeah.
um, right? And I was like, you know what? I think I still had a pager then, right? So like I had kind of like seen the cycle from like I had a pager to a flip phone
Yep.
to a smartphone, right? And then having like the world in your palm, the blogs. It was like, oh, I don't need somebody to curate my news. Like
Mm,
I can just broadcast it
yep.
straight up. on my own, you know?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so my question for you.
Yes.
When you look back to those days when we were students,
Mm.
2002, did we have any idea that media would eventually mean navigating the intersections of social justice and travel that you're in now?
Not at all. I was not
Wow.
even thinking about that at all. I remember this is really funny. Uh, we had like we had some final exam for one of these mass comm courses. I don't know if you were in this class with me, but we had to write like it was an essay. It was kind of a giveaway of just like make something up, but it was like, can you like predict a future media trend? And I
Mm,
was just like, I was like, yeah, podcasts, but I don't think I didn't call it podcast. I called it something like that. And I laugh
mhm,
about that. I'm like, wow. I was like, I kind of knew what was going on,
uh-huh.
but you know, I would at that time I didn't know I would be engaged in social justice work at all. Travel was not remotely on my radar because as a young person, the only traveling I did with my parents was what's it called? It was like road trips,
Mhm.
and so the only I think that our London trip was the second time I had left the country in my entire life. So
Oh, really?
that's why I chose that program. I was like, "Wait, I could do a semester in London. Sign me up. Let's go. Okay, what do we see? What y'all teaching me? Great, that's fine. But I'll I'll thug it out for 2 semesters in Boston if I get to go to London." And so I always wanted to work in the music industry, and I
Yeah, you
did
did.
after school for a bit, for about 4 years, which was cool. It was great. It was ridiculous time in my life. But I I wouldn't have imagined the trajectory, and I think that's one of the things that, like, I'm appreciative about the education that I've had is because I was always taught about media analysis and
Mm,
like less about technical skills of like, this is how you run a soundboard or like, this is
yeah,
how you produce a show. And I've done those things, but it was really thinking about like narrative and it wasn't taught to us as narrative strategy.
yeah,
Um, but the ability to move through communication strategically, no matter
yeah,
what the technology is, because essentially the principles are the same.
yeah,
It's just a different medium. It's just a different method of how it's disseminated. And so now getting older, I'm like, okay, I want to stay increasingly nimble,
yeah.
but also like there's so much. I'm exhausted. Like, I have to pick my places. I can't do this, can't do it all,
Yeah,
as much as I want to. So, it really is an interesting trajectory, and the social justice piece was something that was always in my spirit,
mhm,
um, you being a young activist in high school and, a little bit in college, not so much, but I was always interested in like feminism and women's rights. And
yeah.
so the more I got along that path, it just was kind of like this weird natural leap from hip hop music industry, like 180 into like reproductive health.
I
So,
yeah.
you know,
I don't know if it's a 180, right? I mean, and I think that's one of the things that I'm still continuing to explore, and that's still kind of developing in me since writing the book. It's like we are multidimensional individuals, right? And so it's sort of like, yes, I can be a brown woman and I can love, I don't know, classical music, and I can also be a genius at, I don't know, AI, or right. So it's sort of like it looks, to a binary thinker, it
yes,
looks like it's this person is all over the place, and it's like, no, we embody like all the things, and we can become masters of all the things. I'm
yes.
about to get off my soapbox and ask you my next
No,
question.
no, but that's super important because I think to that point of like us being in this really interesting transitional generation is like we're also in this generation where it was like our parents told us like pick a lane, do this thing,
Mhm.
like it's very like singular focused. You can't be a dancer and a writer and a scientist. Like, no,
Right.
so there's a different freedom, I think, now where it's like understanding that multidimensionality, or they like people call it multi hyphenates. And
Mhm.
sometimes even in my brain, it's like trying to do branding and I'm like, well, how do I merge all these things together? I'm like, you know what I mean? Throw it out, see what's throwing spaghetti at a wall. But like, that's part of the authenticity of it, is like we have to show our different dimensions. And I think that's also more interesting and more relatable to a
Yes.
lot of people.
Yes. Yes. I think people, well, oh, we're so going to get into this because I have prepared some questions. So I want
I
to
know, and I'll
stay
take
on
you all
script.
over the world. So
No,
yes.
but actually we're sort of touching on all the things.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to your dissertation
Mhm.
because that's where I was like, I need her on this show. This dissertation, fun narrative, not PR.
Mhm.
So for those of you all who haven't read it yet, go read it. Read it now. You argue that people are chasing placements, and I think when you say people, mostly like the nonprofit world,
Mhm.
um, they're chasing these placements while their stories are actually starving, right? They're not
Mhm.
getting nourished. They're not sort of like developing that traction and allowing themselves to grow. So why this blog post, this dissertation? Like, why did you write this now? Because I could feel urgency in your message.
Yes. Um, you really encapsulated it perfectly. So, I've been working with nonprofits for almost 20 years at this point, and the gift of time is that you see patterns. It's
Mhm,
also like really frustrating when you're like, hey, these are issues that we've been talking about for the entirety of my career. And I know the people before me were, who were comms practitioners, were talking about this too. And so there's an urgency because of the political climate that we're in here in the US. And I would say globally too, because, fascism is not just contained here, clearly. Um, but particularly with the US context of how nonprofits work, there's
mhm,
been a lot of us. I hate using the phrase canary in the coal mine, but it really is like, if I understanding like what that actually means, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what it is.
mhm,
Um, a lot of us practitioners have been working with nonprofit organizations, whether within them as consultants, as trainers, etc., coaches, and we see how there's so much richness in a lot of these people who are communications professionals in the organizations. Like, they're brilliant. They're also like super stressed out because like, the issue with nonprofits a lot of time is capacity. There's small departments. It might be a one person department. It might be six people. And even if you have six people, y'all are still stressed because there's so much to do, as we were just
mhm,
talking about with 5011 social media outlets and podcast, broadcast TV, newspapers, and that's just the media piece.
mhm,
So the whole premise of the article, or what sparked it, is because, and this has been kind of rumored for a while, but it just really is hitting, that funders are pulling back from funding public relations activities because a lot of the nonprofits who are considered DEI, which is like everybody at this point,
mhm,
is you do anything with Black people, brown people, women, immigration, gay people,
mhm,
trans people, climate, health, like all of
mhm,
that is DEI, and all of that is being targeted. And so there were significant, what would I say? Like, certain organizations were named as targets by the administration to try to
mhm,
like pull back their funding, criminalize them. Like, it got deep. And so the response was that funders were like, we no longer want to fund communications in the sense of Public relations means getting your name out, getting attention. So not wanting to bring attention to these organizations, but through PR. And so I'm like, well,
Mm-hmm.
that's great. Fantastic. Like, that's wise.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that for a long time, PR is a tactic, period.
Yeah.
And public relations, like media hits, media strategy should be part of a larger communication strategy for an
Yep.
organization. I tell my clients all the time, your communications goals need to support the strategic goals of the organization. And what I find is that when I ask my beautiful communications folks, hey, do y'all have a strategic plan? Like, what are the goals for the organization? They're like, child, I don't know. And I'm like, well, that's a bigger problem, So I'm like doing triage here, like putting band-aids on bullet holes,
Mm-hmm.
because what happens and why EDs are so focused on like or don't have time to do strategic planning is because they're chasing money. And
Yep.
I mean that with all respect. I
Yeah.
respect executive directors. It is a job I could not do because of the pressure to your job. Most of your job is getting money to keep the organization afloat.
Yep.
And so hence why ain't nobody got time for no strategic planning when I got to figure out how the bills are getting paid, and also what happens is structurally they're approaching funders for campaigns that are maybe 2 to 3 year long campaigns. Maybe they're 5 year campaigns, but they're
Yep.
fine. And so funding communications often gets put into that bucket of like, okay, we want to do a campaign on X, Y, and Z. So we're going to make sure there's a communications component in this for this 2, 3, 5 year grant. And then we'll figure out 3 years down the line, how are we going to fund communications again? And so with that, there's no like longevity in that. It's very short term thinking.
Yeah.
And it keeps communications focused on a specific campaign. And one of these metrics that like funders love because it's sexy, it's easy to like, it's tangible. It's like,
Yeah.
we want to hit in the New York Times, or we want to see you on MSNBC, or we want to, you need to be on, I was going to say Joe Rogan, and that is totally not it. But I mean, terrible. But so the issue is that, that's like a very long-winded explanation. But the point is that when you're focused on just getting these media hits, there's not a strategy in terms of narrative and the bigger issues that you're trying to talk about. So like if you're running a campaign where you're like, we want to uplift the voices of immigrant folks who, work in farming.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Yes. So you want your press hits, you want, Washington Post to write a story and whoever, cool. But like, what's the bigger issue about why do you want immigrant farmer voices to be there? Like, what are you fighting against? And a lot of it is like, you're trying to bump up against racist, xenophobic narratives.
Right.
Of, these people are stealing our jobs, they're lazy, or they're criminals, or whatever things that people think. The whole point is to really like dismantle these narratives. But if you're not thinking about it and formulating a strategy or formulating messaging or formulating a plan, understanding like the water we're swimming in is this like anti-immigrant rhetoric, then like those little press hits are cool, but what are they actually building up? Are you just doing it for vanity because to show like, hey, funder, we got this hit? Or are you actually advancing a conversation? And as you know, narratives are built over time. A lot of the really negative ones have been from the inception of, I'm going to speak on the United States, but like for centuries. So, it takes repetition and it takes intentionality to really challenge those existing narratives about immigrants per se, about Black women, for, like about these different types of people or issues. So that's why I got really like, I wrote forever. I was just like, I'm so like, this because it encapsulates everything that like we've been frustrated
Yeah.
about as strategic communications professionals and practitioners and narrative strategists and experts. Like it's not
Yeah.
new. So, it just feels like a window of opportunity. Like, hey, funders, like you have to be wiser with your money. And because you haven't listened to us for 20 years and communications, look who's running the show.
Uh-huh.
Look at go on Instagram and see what people are talking about and how people talk. Like, there's like actual real world
Yeah.
impacts of not having strategic communications at the forefront. And the ops knew that and have been building their communications strategy since before
Yeah.
Reagan, since the
Yeah.
70s.
Yeah. For forever. I drew a quote from that dissertation where you were quoting this narrative power building organization called Reframe. And they
Yep.
define narrative, and I wrote it down actually, and I typed it up for the purposes of this interview, but they define narrative as, quote, a collection of related stories that are articulated and refined over time to represent a
Mhm.
central idea or belief. Messages are the stories and ideas that build up a narrative over time, end quote. And I noticed the repetition of the word time, and I was like, yes, this is one of the things that I've been struggling to explain to some of the people that I work with, which is
Mm.
it's fine to have a message, but if you just kind of pump out messages or sound bites, basically you just have like a jumble of bricks. But like the narrative is the stacking the bricks to build a fort, a house, an outhouse. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Like whatever your mission
Yes.
of building is, you've got to be building something, right? So like there has to
Yeah.
be a point of view that like
Yeah.
takes this somewhere, but like we've got our bricks, folks. Like let's stop creating messages.
Yes.
Let's start
We don't
stacking them.
another barrel of bricks thrown on top of the
Let's
pile.
start stacking
Yes.
them and like
Yes.
creating something. What is this thing that we're going to stand on or stand in or stand under, right? Like what are we doing here,
Yes.
folks?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And I find, sure, I don't know if you see this as well, but like people will use the word narrative, but they really mean message. And so like it's also too here in the States or and in the nonprofit world, it's become like narrative
Yeah.
shift. We want narrative shift. Everybody wants narrative shift. They don't want to do the narrative power building
Mhm.
work. They don't want to invest in the strategy, or they'll do, or what is happening is, and this is good, but there's limitations. And I'm seeing people do a better job of like framing this, but like doing a bunch of trainings or these like one-off
Mhm.
kind of like we're going to go deep dive for a week, and it's like that's great, and now folks got to go back to their orgs
Yeah.
and sell
Yeah.
it, or do the regular like, why aren't we posting on Instagram
Yeah.
for every day, what I'm saying, dealing with that when you're like, y'all, we're trying to like combat fascism,
Mhm.
like we gotta think for a
Right.
second.
Right.
Like,
Right.
Instagram can wait. It'll be fine 48 hours if we
Yeah.
don't
And
post,
they've been doing this for, like you were saying, centuries, probably millennia. And we
right.
started like last week or last decade or right.
Right.
And so it's like we if we've been kind of scrambling all this time, like we can wait a beat
Right.
and start
Exactly.
deciding
Exactly.
what are we going to build with our bricks.
Yes. I love that. I love that analogy. That's yes.
Now,
Exactly. Exactly.
let's continue to talk about narratives and
Uh-huh.
centuries old narratives, but I'm gonna shift the music a little bit to Bad Bunny's halftime show.
Girl, it just gives me chills when you said, I'm like, please don't let me start crying on the show. It's so good.
Oh my goodness. I don't know if you know this, but I started taking salsa dance classes about a year ago. it has just transformed me. Just
Mm,
taking
mm,
dance. And watching this and of course it's been salsa, so Latin music, and watching this Bad
uh-huh.
Bunny performance, everything was in Spanish. It was all sorts of Latin music. It was really representative of, I would say, the Afro-Latino
Mhm.
diaspora, um, and like American continents,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
it was like
Yes.
a full, I don't know, love fest. And it
Mhm.
was really, a love, the power of love versus the power of hate, which has
Yes.
really kind of like sucked our energy, our attention. And this show was a redirecting of our focus as a
Yes.
populace. So I've
Mhm.
been feeling it. I've been thinking about it. I've been feeling the feels, listening to the music over and over. So we've just done some analysis, intellectual analysis.
Mhm.
Um, but that show hit a chord, and I guess I wanted to just kind of ask you about the
Mhm.
vibe.
Oh man, it's so deep. Like there's so much to it, but there's a couple of things like big picture things that I think are so interesting about it. Um that it was, if we're talking about like messaging, to your point, straight up, it was like, there's nothing, the only thing more powerful than hate is love. It was like,
Yep,
boom, I'm writing it out for you so you can't tell me anything else. It says it right here on the screen,
yep,
clear as day, right? And so that's a very strong message. Like it's a very clear message, and it is fighting, it's like pushing up against this narrative of division, of hatred. And particularly, again, there were so many aspects of it that were pushing up against these like xenophobic narratives,
hmm
which really took over the whole like Super Bowl cultural. When they announced it, I was in Europe actually, and I was just watching. Whenever I leave the US, it's so interesting to watch like people's conversations.
hmm
Um, and I was like, yeah, Bad Bunny, oh my God, it's gonna be so hype. And then seeing like the devolution of like the conversation from, the people who have power right now in
hmm
the States, and have like the loudest, wrongest voices. Um, and so it's interesting that it was like like an avalanche or like a snowball, which was like it just kept gaining all this momentum about like just xenophobic
hmm
energy, and um all of this like fear-based energy. And so I feel like it was such a strong statement of
Yeah,
like pride, of love, of joy, of like, I don't care what y'all talking about. You can say whatever you want. This is for us. We're gonna have a party. All the stuff you talk about, how we're bad, this, that. We're gonna demonstrate it,
yeah,
because talk is whatever, but you can get more emotion and you can translate so much more through music, through art,
yeah,
through things that kind of disarm people but still have a message. And that's
yeah,
what I love. Like that album is so dope, and the images that he did with it, the conversation about it is so incredible, because it's an album of, like, it's party and it's beautiful, but it
hmm
talks really about gentrification and like the loss of, cultural identity, or not cultural
yeah.
identity, but like the loss of culture. And it talks about
Culture.
colonization and imperialism, but it also brings, it's constructed, like the musical styles that it brings are like Afro Latino foundational music forms
Yes.
in Puerto Rico. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? That's
yeah,
what's so like is so much that's so interesting about it. But I mean, it was so joyful, and no one can like refute that. And if you do,
yeah.
you just look stupid. You know what I
You
mean?
really do.
It's like, what are you even talking about? Whatever. And for people to be like, I was watching these videos of like people waiting for their countries to be called, and then like how
Hmm.
hyped they would get when they saw their
Hmm.
like country called. That just was sending me like tears, because it was like people just want to be seen
Right.
and like honored and acknowledged. Like I was hyped when they mentioned Haiti. I was like, oh, what happened? I was so psyched. Like, and you know, it was beautiful. It was
Yeah.
beautiful and intentionally thought out. And like the way that he brought one of my favorite parts was when they were hanging off the electricity poles. And
Oh.
that's a
Hmm.
yes. And so from his previous album, he has the song El Apagón. And
Uh,
it's like, I don't know if you've ever watched the actual music video, but you should. It is
mm-mm.
a 15-minute documentary
Mhm.
about Luma and the privatization of the electricity, and why there's all these blackouts. And so the shirt I'm wearing actually is from the reporter who was featured in that video. So she was like a legitimate news reporter in Puerto
Uh-huh.
Rico. And her story is fascinating. So he like boosted her up, and so she's like doing the reporting in the midst of this music video slash documentary about Puerto Rico's electric system. It's brilliant. It is brilliant. And so this was like kind of a continuation. So it was, I love that he brought that in,
Uh-huh.
because like this is political.
Oh, yeah.
And like if you know, you know. And if you don't, you're kind of like curious, like what's interesting? Like what's this about? Like so I thought it was like just masterful. And I think overall, to bring it back to a lot of what we talk about with messaging and comms, I've been in spaces where we've had to like fight, or let me not say fight, we've had to make the case
Yeah.
to funders about the power of art
Yeah.
and why art needs to be funded. And I'm like, there is no clearer example than Bad Bunny. People still talk. That was 2 weeks ago almost,
Yep.
and there's still content rolling out.
I'ma still keep talking about it. Like
Right. There was at Mardi Gras. We have Mardi Gras on Tuesday here in New Orleans.
yeah.
There was people dressed up as the grass people, the sugar cane. Ah,
You know, but
already.
so you were talking about like how he included so many cultures. This was so much more than just you know, Latin people. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that in a derogatory way, or I'm saying it to imitate the derogatory ways that non-Spanish speaking people speak about
Hmm.
all people from abroad, right? This and it included, like, I was surprised to see Trinidad in there. I mean,
Right.
it's very Anglo, it's just close to Venezuela. Nobody speaks Spanish there, right? So I was like, oh, maybe it won't be there, right? But it was represented. And I was like, dang, they included us too, right? Like it was really
Yep.
it was really like you were saying, a masterful demonstration of narrative strategy.
Mhm.
Like there was more there than just putting on a good show, which, hey, I don't have it was a great show. But he actually went there to say something.
Yes.
And I think to that end, I just wanted to kind of add that um, that that statement that he had there, which you just quoted, and something about love and hate, and
Mhm.
he said it in English. It was
Yeah.
the only thing that was in English, just
Yes.
to make sure that nobody would get it twisted what this was about.
That's
And
right.
the other thing that I think you're talking about medium, which is just as important in a communication strategy, because it was a halftime game, it was a global stage,
Yep.
and definitely the Super Bowl has become like a global event.
Mhm.
And this medium of music and the arts, like you're talking about, and specifically the Afro Latino vehicle of the art of music and dance, is so much more than just notes
Mhm.
and rhythms, right?
Mhm.
It was a way of communicating with each other. It was a way of communicating platforms, even if they were subversive platforms.
Mhm.
So there's so many levels, like you said, and yeah, I
Yeah.
I really wanted to take a moment to hear you talk about Bad Bunny's show, but
Loved
now
it. Mhm.
let's talk all about you and Wander Woman.
Yay.
Um, so you've built Wander Woman for BIPOC, gender expansive travelers.
Mhm.
Um, in our industry, travel is often sold as an escape
Yeah.
or a break, which we do
Mhm.
need.
Yeah.
But just tell us a little something about Wonder Woman. And then, because I saw your site said something about travel isn't always glamorous, but it still is magical. So I wanted to kind of get an understanding of where you were coming from with
Mhm.
that.
Yes, absolutely. I co-founded Wander Women with a dear friend of mine, and really it was born out of this was like 2019, 2018, and a lot of the travel content that we were seeing was like very polished, and it's changed so much now. I'm really glad, but it was like it was very like me centric, right? It was like,
Hmm.
I'm so beautiful. I have this amazing outfit on, and I'm standing on the beach. And then it was like the caption is some like quote, from like a Bed Bath
Eat,
and
pray,
Beyond.
love.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, so are you in Fiji? Are you in Italy? Are you at Coney Island? Like,
Right.
where are you at? This is a beach. Like, what are we doing? Probably was not Coney Island, but it was just that it wasn't telling me anything about travel. And so
Hmm.
and it felt very extractive. It felt very like kind of just disrespectful, to be
Hmm.
honest. Um and it felt very like flat. I'm popping in, I'm taking some photos. I know I'm not connecting with this land, the people, community in any way, shape, or form. And so that was really why we started it. And so right now it's just me doing Wander Women. And so it's cool. It was perfect. My dear friend who co-founded it is like a fly chef now. Like,
Oh,
yeah, she's killer. She's amazing.
living her
Shout
best life.
Yeah, she's an amazing chef, and we actually come from communications, strategic comms. That's how we met.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, and it was a few of us just talking about, again, going back to like narratives about travel and messages about travel and what that means visually, and when you just see people like looking fly and whatever, but not really talking about issues. And so it's like I can't take my social justice glasses off. And also knowing that like this was during our current president's first administration.
Hmm.
And so thinking about safety of travel,
Hmm.
particularly in the US, but even like what does it mean to go to certain places outside of the US? How are we perceived if you're, a Black woman, a woman of
Hmm.
color, person of color, if you're, queer, trans,
Yep.
non-binary, and so all of these different experiences and just thinking about like how can we create a space where like we're acknowledging this and helping people navigate the world and navigate travel through our various intersecting identities. And then also what has really grown in my heart is really lifting up community-based tourism
Hmm.
experiences. So thinking about like, hey, I'm going to this place, my tourism dollars or pounds or whatever it is matter. And how can I use this tourism money to uplift the local communities?
Right.
So I live in New Orleans, and New Orleans is like a case study for disaster capitalism. After Hurricane Katrina, it is, and in particular, how many things changed, but also the fact that it's a tourism is a major, major aspect of the economy here, not just for the city, but New Orleans brings in a lot of money for the state of
Mm.
Louisiana. And so like who is actually benefiting from that tourism and also
That
from the
influx.
marketing.
Hmm.
Exactly. And the marketing of the culture, because there's a saying that everything you love about New Orleans is because of Black people. And it's pretty much the truth. Like it's Black culture,
Hmm.
in Caribbean, African American, like diasporic, all of that was born out of Black culture. So
Yeah.
you're marketing this to everybody all the time,
Hmm.
but are the culture bearers, meaning like the people who are holding the cultural knowledge, who are the artists, who are the musicians, who are the historians, are they benefiting from tourism?
Mm.
And New Orleans is a specific example, but you can look at that on so many different levels of different places, right? Of places that are, where locals are struggling. Like, for example, I'm going back to the shirt. Her name is Bianca Gualau. I'm gonna mess up her last name, but she's done a lot of interesting work around tourism, over tourism, gentrification, and she did a story about Oaxaca, in
Hmm.
particular, a city in Mexico, and it was about how people who were visiting were living their best lives, but like the people who live there don't have water and electricity on a regular
Right.
basis. So, how do for me, I'm always thinking about I love to travel. I want to go travel. I love to go learn, but I like to go lay on the beach. I like to relax. I like to eat good food. I like to go
Hmm.
dance. I like to go to a museum. Like I want to do all the things, right? And frankly, I do want to escape sometimes, but being conscious and mindful of my escape is going to somebody's home.
Yeah.
So I need to act like I have home training and not be trashing somebody's home,
Yeah.
and respectful of somebody's home. And so I think I haven't even expressed this until now that is like part of this narrative shift work, um, of how we think about travel and how I talk about decolonizing travel a lot and thinking about
Hmm.
what that mean. Is that possible? How can we have like, the best impact possible? Um, and just be mindful of how we're showing up to somebody's home while also
Hmm.
still like enjoying the things that we love about travel. So, you
Right.
know, it's not always glamorous because sometimes you gotta, it's hot, there's no AC, or, you know, you're trucking through a, monsoon or whatever. Like there's all sorts of things, uh, but there's always magic in it. There's always
It's
magic
true.
in travel, depending on how you experience it or how you like, open yourself up to the experience of just a conversation with someone in a train station, or, like a moment of peace staring at water, or,
Hmm.
watching a butterfly. Like when I was in Vietnam, and one of my favorite things was like these bright pink dragonflies. I was like obsessed with, I would just be following them, like, where are you going? I love you guys. You know what I mean? Like those kinds of things. And it was hot and sweaty, and I was drinking liquid IV like it was my job. But when there was the pink dragonflies, I'm like, yes, let's go. We're on an adventure.
Yeah.
So, there's all these different ways to think about it.
I want to travel with you, Janna. Okay. So I have another question about this. I've noticed in some of your in some of your talks or posts that you talk about sustainable travel,
Yeah.
and um, I've been hearing a lot about the green movement in travel and thinking about it as well. And I've noticed though that when people talk about being green, being like being green as a traveler, they rarely talk about being anti-racist
Mm,
or like anti or pro decolonizing
yeah.
travelers. And for me, I just feel like there's like some kind of invisible thread that connects the environmentally conscious and conscientious
Hmm.
person with a socially conscientious person, or that mindset anyway. In a way, they're kind of like the same thing and they can't be separated. Am I making sense here? Because
Girl, yes.
Like,
Yeah.
I feel like you kind of have to be aligned on, yes, supporting the planet, but also that means being, anti-racist. That
Yes.
means being, not supporting I don't know, the hotels that like destroyed a mangrove in order to get that, perfect beach location, right?
Yes.
Like that it's kind of the both of them. You can't sort of like trade one off and then pretend the other one didn't happen.
Yes, I love that. You nailed it. Um, and I took this course. It was an online course, uh, and it was about sustainable destination management, and it was excellent. And it was particularly for journalists, which I
Okay.
really enjoyed. And one of the pieces that I didn't have language for until taking the course, it's exactly what you said, is like that sustainability means environment, right? Like things like infrastructure, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
You're building all these condos and these hotels, but like folks don't have water, running water, you know,
Hmm.
or like the land can't hold that capacity, right?
Right.
But also cultural preservation is seen as a part of the sustainability. And I love that so much because it's naming exactly what you're talking about. I feel like
Mm.
is like, it's not just about the land itself, right? Like the oceans or the trees or the mountains. That's part of it, but it's also like sustainability of the community,
Hmm.
sustainability of the people who are local, native, indigenous to that place. And that has really guided a lot of my work. And I work with one of my dear friends and colleagues here. Shout out to Tammy Fairweather. That's like my biz partner. And we work in New Orleans like with that lens
Hmm.
of how can we support more sustainability, green, issues, particularly like here in New Orleans and in Louisiana, the rivers, like there's a lot of land loss. You have Cancer
Mm.
Alley, which is like 20-30 minutes from or really it's like a 30 miles. I don't even think it's 30 miles. It's really 35 minutes in the car
Uh-huh.
um from here. And it's where all the petrochemicals plants are and the oil
Oh.
reserves. It's
Oh.
all along the Mississippi River. It's the worst. And there's been a lot of like environmental justice folks who have really been fighting with such fervor because it's
Mhm.
actually like those are the impacts that are actually killing people. um but thinking about like that physical, expression of what we think about as sustainability with like land and like water, but also the cultural preservation, because
Mhm.
that's sustainability too. Like what
Yeah.
happens when all of this culture, if I'm not gonna say when, but if the culture is gone, people are not going to want to come here. And also,
Mhm.
like, what does that mean for preserving culture, which is a part of like history and it's a part of our like our lives? Like, that's ancestral, you know?
Right.
So, what you say I think is so important, and it's really cool how you put it in terms of like they're inextricably linked. Like you can't divorce them from the other. But I
Mhm.
think that and a lot of what I see in a lot of like luxury travel type stuff is, to your point, it's very like, but we're, using recycled plastic for our cooking, you know what I mean? Or whatever.
Right.
It's like, we recycle our, you
Mhm.
know, food or compost and whatever. And I'm like, that's good,
Mhm.
great, and fine. Please continue to do that. I love that. But like to your point, who are these workers here and how are you treating them? And
Right.
what's the impact that you're having on their community where you built this thing? Like
Yeah.
what's the 360 picture of it, not just, those very like tangible kind of surface sustainability or green initiatives.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we are slowly coming to the close, but I understand that you have something exciting brewing that you want to share with our viewers. So
I
please
do.
share.
I'm so excited. First of all, I love your like fancy setup with the QR codes on the screen. Living for it. Very nice.
Yay.
Well played. So I'm really excited. I'm going to be launching a course, and it's particularly for entrepreneurs, small business owners, artists, whoever, to help you pitch yourself to the media
Mhm.
and land interviews and land speaking opportunities. So it's to demystify the process and help you own your expertise and be able to share that, pitch yourself anytime, any place. But before that, if you join the newsletter, I'm
Mhm.
going to do a free 1 hour call where I'm going to help you talk through how to develop relationships with journalists, build relationships with journalists, and just like ask me some questions. And so I know that like a lot of times people are like, I want to be on a podcast. Where do I start? I don't know who to talk to. What do I tell people? And so I'll help you think about that. And really, why I am doing this call about relationship building is I think it's important for us to again understand the long game,
Mhm.
and understand to also too like we have to put ourselves out there
Yeah.
and like journalists, editors, producers, they need us to. I used to be so scared. Oh my God. When I first started doing, my stomach would be in knots, child. I would be so stressed out.
Yeah.
I would smoke a joint and be like, okay, I can do this. Like I was, I was the worst. And then I just was like, well, this is my job. I chose this, even though I'm like debilitatingly frightened. Cool. So we're gonna talk about it so that you don't have to like drink lots of coffee, smoke a
Don't,
joint,
don't,
like stress
don't
yourself.
drink lots of coffee if you're going to do a media pitch. Like,
Rule number one.
yeah. Yeah, like get a glass of wine,
Yeah, exactly.
even if it's 9 in the morning. Oh no. Oh my goodness. Here she's back. She's
Yes. I was
back.
like, where do we go? Yeah, girl. No, totally, totally. Go drink some not chamomile, but drink some ginger tea. Get yourself
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Ashwagandha, tinctures, whatever you got to do. But yeah, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to just talk about relationship building with journalists, and like some tips and tricks, and then
Great.
just have a conversation about that, because I want more of us to get ourselves out there. And it's something that you can do yourself. Sometimes when you're a small business, you're a unit of.
Yep. Yep. You're a unit of one. I think we lost Janna for a hot second there, but I fully agree. I'm a sign up. In fact, that's probably what we're going to talk about after she's come back and after we wrap up the show. Oh, I wanted to ask her one more question. Let's see if I can hide this and get her back. Get her back. Okay, here she is.
Happened. I don't know what happened. But
You
yeah.
cut off at you're a unit of one, and
Oh
this
man.
is going back to the whole nonprofit scene, and
Mm,
that it's small businesses, nonprofits, and also those one woman, one man shows,
yep.
right? Like if you've published a book and you need to get the word out. But
Right.
I'm also speaking to all of the golden creatives that I've been interacting with. Like it it is a daunting prospect, and I think that the original institution of media um, constructed it in a way to curate who would get the platform to present their voices.
Yes.
But we've seen in our lifetime, in our media lifetime, how
Mhm.
much that's changed,
Yes.
and how I think going back to the Bad Bunny masterclass in communications, of just claiming your platform if you can't get it any other way. So, he did say, believe in yourself. And that is actually the core of PR and any media outreach. Believing in yourself, not drinking the coffee, picking up the phone, right, or sending the email, not overanalyzing it, and just say like, I know what I believe in what I'm doing,
That's right.
and I know that this has to be out there,
That's
and
right.
eventually somebody will answer.
It's the truth. It's the truth.
That's
Absolutely.
that's a strategy. Like, just keep at it.
Yes, there's uh an influencer who's really smart. Her name is Gabby Beckford. She does travel, Gen Z travel. And she posted recently towards the beginning of the year about like her year of 2000 or whatever, I don't know what the number was, rejections. Like she's just like
Hmm.
trying to get all 2000 rejections. And I was like, I love that because I still
Hmm.
get mad. Even I still get mad when I get rejections or I don't hear from people.
Yeah.
I'm like, girl, you've been doing this for how long? But I still have an attitude because I believe in it so much. And I'm like, you dummies. Or like, how come you don't understand it? Then I'm like,
Mhm.
well, is it my pitch? And like, I'm sure there's ways I can spruce up pitches. Like that's,
Yeah, for
whatever.
sure.
But it comes from an unwavering belief in like what I believe is important. And
Hmm.
so like it's gonna find its home,
Yeah.
and really thinking about that. And that was one of my favorite parts of uh the Bad Bunny show was that part. Like watching it the next day over and over, I was just like, "Ooh, I believe in myself. I will be that Bunny. I tell you." Like shit. Anyway.
That's wonderful. So I'm going to put up that QR code again. I hope that's not what booted you out.
Yeah, no.
So if you want to get that course, get access to the course and coaching for a limited time, now's the time to sign up for that course. So whip out
Yeah,
your phones, grab that QR code, join Jazz's
completely.
course.
Yeah, yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. So, course coming soon, call coming soon as well. A group call. It'll be really fun. It'll be cool to learn from each other and hype each other
Yes.
up because I believe in community building. So,
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so a final question. In my life, I find that the most important moves that I've made are come from a space of silence in
mm,
that like quiet work. Um, and uh, and that is where all of my strategies come from, right? Like you're kind of like laying those bricks
mhm,
alone slowly, and you're just kind of like establishing a foundation long before anybody knows what the thing is that you're building.
mhm,
Um, how do you stay grounded and protect your peace and your creative integrity when
mm,
you're in a room with decision makers
mm,
who are, anxious about their bottom line, anxious about their funding cycles, while you're trying to like make sure that the bloodline of a story or of narrative can still like have an infrastructure through which to circulate.
mm. That's a great question. I mean, to be honest, staying grounded and cool, calm, and collected is a growth edge.
Yes, it is.
you
Yes, it
know,
is.
and
I'm
finding
asking for a friend, by the way.
um, I think it goes back to kind of what we were just talking about with like Bad Bunny and is like believing in yourself and believing in what you know. And that's what I've had to really sit with. The stillness piece is really, really important. And it's something that I'm working on because I realize a lot of the things that I will advise my clients to do, I'm like, oh, I really need to do that for myself. And that
Mm,
requires me to be still and not feel the pressure of like, I have to post, I have to do these things. Like, there is that pressure that comes up of feeling like if I
Mhm.
disappear from the internet for a week, a month, like
Who
I'm
am
gonna
I?
be right, right. And it's like I have been using this season to, even though I've been, I'll post stuff or whatever. A lot of it is very experimental. And uh also part of a branding exercise, but
Mm,
I've always been the type of person, for better or worse, that has been grounded in my ethics and my morals. And that's
mm,
actually, great. It's also really hard because sometimes it's completely not popular. Like a
yeah,
lot of times as comms professionals, you're not saying a popular thing, like to your point of trying to keep, funders or whoever, people within your organizations, keeping them grounded
mhm,
or getting them to like kind of understand how communications, narrative, how the long game
yeah,
requires attention. That's like unsexy. And
yeah,
it's nerdy and heady. And like people are like, yeah, but what about tomorrow?
right.
And I think why people have enjoyed, or clients have enjoyed working with me, is because like I'm gonna tell you the truth. I'm not, I'm gonna coat my machete with honey so that you understand. You know what I mean? So it's not so bad. But
Damn, she brought out the machete though. Like,
sometimes stuff gotta get cut. You know what I'm saying? But we go easy. Let's put a little honey on it. It's fine. You'll be all right.
you're
But like,
tough.
right. But I am always like, I joke about that, but I know that this work is hard, and I know that especially working with small businesses and nonprofits, there's like a deep passion and love for the work that you're doing. And so that's driving the anxiety around it, of
Yeah,
like the feeling like I want this to succeed, like we have to save the world, or all these things. And so my job is to stay grounded in what I know to be true from experience, learning, education, etc., and help you ground in that as well, and feel like there's some sort of like action plan to go forward. Like I'm not just going to cut everything off and be like, bye, sorry, like, but you know, I want to deliver the truth in a way that feels palatable, but also
mhm,
feels like actionable.
right.
Um, and sometimes that feels uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah.
Some, like even writing that, my dissertation, as I call it, the blog post, I was really nervous to post it. I was like, am I gonna ruin my relationships? Are people gonna be like, this girl always be mouthing off or whatever? And it's actually brought me closer to um like it's reconnected us in a way,
Mhm,
what I mean, which is really cool. And that was so unexpected of an outcome.
mhm.
Uh, one of the agencies I collaborate with, they reposted it. They edited it very nicely too. I was like, thanks, guys. But they reposted it. So it's like, all right, we got to get over our fears,
Yeah,
uh, and when we're doing the things that we believe in.
yeah, yeah. Before we close, remind folks where they can find you besides the QR code.
That's right.
Um, where can folks find you? How can they find out about your class? The whole
Yes.
everything.
Yes. So you have the QR code for the newsletter. You can also find me jannazinzi.com, JANNA, Zinzi, ZINZI.com. And you can get in touch with me there. I'm also at Janna Zinzi on IG. I'm on LinkedIn. And then Wander Women is down there. It's spelled a little differently with an X. So find me, look up Wander Women Travels. That's my blog. And also I'm on the socials. I love TikTok, so come find me on TikTok. That's my favorite. Um, for travel stuff, I love TikTok. So yeah, come find me there.
I want to get on TikTok, but the other part of me is like, I just don't have time.
No, no, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Okay.
Changed a lot too, at least, but I'd be curious for you in Europe, how, like, because here in the States with TikTok, then we have some like terrible owner and they changed a lot of the rules. Like, it's
Mm,
definitely, what's happening here is like all of these things are being bought up by like right wing
mhm,
broligarchs. And so it's changing the vibes, but and it's actually changing to what gets pushed and what goes. Well, I'm noticing
mm,
it in my feed of
feed.
like, I'm like, this should have gotten more attention, but it's okay. Like, it's all an experiment. Um, so yeah, anyway, find me on TikTok. That's where you
Okay.
get a lot of my like a lot of like diaspora travel content, which I love. It does so much better on TikTok than IG for whatever reasons. That's a whole
Yeah.
other hour-long conversation.
Yeah. I'll have you back on the show. We'll talk all things social media. Yes.
Woo!
Jenna, thank you so much for being here. To everyone listening, you can find the show notes and more about my journey at brownbeyondborders.substack.com.
Get that book.
Get the book. Get it now. No. Keep creating, stay golden,